Southern California, good afternoon, and welcome to another edition of the SoCal Supreme Sports Show. Got quite a bit to talk about today, such as the Los Angeles Clippers. The good news, they made it out of the first round. That's the good news. The bad news is they're now down 0-2 to the Utah Jazz. Can they actually make it out of the second round? Or will this be the end of the line for them this season? And what do the Lakers need to do in order to have success like they did in 2020? This year was unfortunately a tough one, but I don't think they're going anywhere. And then the Dodgers are starting to gain a little ground, but they still have ways to go in order to catch the San Francisco Giants. And then the Angels, surprisingly, have won 7 of their last 10. They've been quietly climbing the ladder, but it's still a long ways to go for them. And then the Padres are still trying to keep pace with the Dodgers and the Giants. And then we have some other NCAA farewells to go over when it comes to the Southern California teams, as NCAA baseball teams and softball teams had their season end when it came to the Southern California teams. Unfortunate, but they gave it a good try. All that and more here on the SoCal Supreme Sports Show. This is Teran Rodriguez bringing you another edition of the SoCal Supreme Sports Show here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. And welcome one, welcome all to another edition of the SoCal Supreme Sports Show. Thank you for joining me on this beautiful Friday afternoon. And yes, surprise, surprise, I am back to the old time and day when this show first originated. Well, originally it originated on Wednesdays at like 5 p.m. And then I decided to move it to Fridays. And then I kind of stuck with it, and then work and outside life kind of became a thing, and now I'm back when it comes to this time and day of the SoCal Supreme Sports Show. So, once again, thank you all for tuning in to this episode 45 of the SoCal Supreme Sports Show. We have quite the show to get into. And without any further delay, let's get on into the Southern California action. But first, let's get the sponsor out of the way first. The official sponsor of IE Sports Radio is the Southern California Warriors semi-pro football team. The world of semi-pro sports is unlike any other sports organization. Players pay to play in hopes of so many different outcomes, whether it's playing to get film to try out for professional teams, big-time colleges, or just playing to stay in shape. No matter what the circumstance, all semi-pro players have one thing in common, and that's playing for the love of the game. The SoCal Warriors have been on a quest to earn titles and give players second chances since 2017. Whether you're in Southern California or anywhere in the world, give semi-pro sports a chance if you love your sport. You may get that second chance you have been waiting for as an athlete. You can follow Southern California Warriors on Twitter at SoCal Warriors, and you can follow them on Instagram at Southern California_Warriors. And if you have Facebook, go to the search bar, type in the word Southern and then the word California and then the word Warriors, and then poof, you're either liking them or following them on Twitter as well. So thank you to the SoCal Warriors for being the official sponsor of IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. And also, one more thing to note when it comes to the SoCal Warriors, they're looking for high character, committed, talented players to add to their 2021 roster, and you have to be 18 or above to join. They have a few open spots and are looking for the right athletes to fill them. Contact head coach Akalani Talfaima at 760-586-3293. That number again is 760-586-3293. Or you can email Coach Okalani at okalani@sosd.us. So thank you once again to Southern California Warriors for being the official sponsor for iSports Radio. And you can also follow iSports Radio on social media through Instagram and Twitter, being at iSports Radio. And then if you go to Facebook, just go to the search bar, type in the words IE, the word sports, then the word radio, and then if you see a black background with white letters, just click on it, click the like button, and then poof, you'll be following us and liking us. So that's how you can follow iSports Radio on social media. And to listen to this show, it's absolutely free. You don't need, as long as you just follow the link, whether you're on like Twitter or Facebook or Instagram, and you see the link from the Tune In Live for this show, just follow that link, and then poof. And it doesn't cost a dime to listen in. And you can even create your own account. That also doesn't cost anything. As we see Larry B in the chat room saying, it's about that time. Yes, it is about that time. Feels good to be back in prime time, aka 5 p.m. Regardless, let's get on into the Southern California sports world. Starting with the Los Angeles Clippers. So, the good news is the Clippers made it out of the first round. I kind of was surprised because I originally had them winning in 7, and then after they lost their first 2, I thought that the Mavs were going to win in like 7 or something. And then the Clippers managed to reverse their unruly fate, and they managed to win in 7 games. They really took it to the Mavericks in Game 7, and I'm not too surprised, but this just goes to show you that Dallas needs a lot more depth on their team, and they need more scores. And to me, I think the Mavericks can't just bank on Luka Doncic forever. Like the difference between the Clippers and the Mavericks is the Clippers have multiple scorers, like Marcus Morris, Paul George when he's on a good game, Kawhi Leonard, Luke Kennard, who sometimes is able to come in every so often, Reggie Jackson, you name it. But the Mavericks, on the other hand, have just one player that is just really good. Everyone else is decent, but not great. So the Clippers advance to the Western Conference semifinals to play the Utah Jazz, and already they are in an 0-2 hole. As we welcome Matthew Hames, fellow Utah Jazz fan. Thank you for joining in. He said Jazz in 5. He said try to tell everyone they were for real, and he said maybe 6. I think it's going to be Jazz in 5 or 6. 5 would be ideal for them just because they would close out the series and they wouldn't have to travel back to Los Angeles. Because the sooner the Jazz could get the series locked up, the sooner they could prepare for the Phoenix Suns or the Denver Nuggets. It would be quite fascinating if the Jazz got the Denver Nuggets, because that was the team they lost to last season, which I don't think we need to explain. I'm not going to explain because my good friend Matt here is a Jazz fan, and I don't want to bring that up. So Larry says, Matt popped in like a jack in the box. Hey, Matt has been with the SoCal Supreme Sports Show since day 1, so I appreciate you popping in, Matt. So thank you. Thank you, man. But for the Clippers, I think their goose is cooked. If they don't win both games in LA, their goose is all but cooked, because first and foremost, this is the point of the Clippers' end for most of the season. And the odds are really stacked against the Clippers. Like, first and foremost, well, Matt says Jazz didn't have Bogdanovich last year in the bubble. That's why they lost to Denver. Facts. And yeah, and the Jazz did everything they could. Like, Donovan Mitchell is such a talented player. And the fact that the Jazz have the top seed in the NBA and the Western Conference is speaks to high volumes of how this team, this Utah Jazz team, is really, really, really good. And I just don't think the Clippers are just deep enough. And honestly, the Clippers have like all sorts of talent, like Rudy Gobert, Bogdanovich, Jordan Clarkson, the ex-Laker, Donovan Mitchell. The list goes on and on. So if the Clippers want to have any hope of possibly making it out of the second round, they got to take the next two, and then they pretty much got to win Game 5. In other words, they're pretty much got to run off 4 straight, because it only gets tough if they don't sweep they win their next 2 home games at home, because that is their golden ticket to making it a series. Because when they lost their first 2 games in LA against the Mavericks, everyone thought they were done, but they actually managed to beat the Dallas Mavericks at Dallas. But here's the thing about the Mavericks and how the Clippers were able to beat the Mavericks. So in Game 3, I don't know if everyone knew this, but the Mavericks were actually up 19 on the Clippers, and everyone thought the Clippers were pretty much done. They were going to get swept and whatnot. And then the Clippers managed to come back from that deficit, that first quarter deficit, and then eventually win the game. And then eventually the Clippers were down 3-2 to the Mavericks, and then they were down like 8 at one point in the fourth quarter, and it looked as if the Clippers were done, and then the Clippers just couldn't seal the deal. And not the Clippers couldn't seal the deal. The Mavericks couldn't seal the deal. And honestly, I think that was more so of the Mavericks losing than it was more of the Clippers winning. And also, the Mavericks led by like 5 in like the third quarter, and then they allowed a 24-4 run to give the Clippers a 15-point lead and whatnot. So honestly, it's not looking. I don't think it's looking too good for the Clippers. And keep in mind, the Jazz didn't have Mike Conley in both of these games. And Matt says, I actually think the Jazz maybe will get it taken to them in Game 3. I think the Clippers come out firing in Game 3, and they could win by 12 plus. I think the writing is on the wall there. Then the Jazz will make the adjustments and win Game 4. That's exactly what I think. Because basically the Clippers know that if they get in the 3-0 hole, it's over. No NBA team has come back from a 3-0 deficit. Yes, the LA Kings did it, but that's hockey, and that's not NBA and whatnot. So I think I actually 100% agree with Matt. I think the Clippers will make the proper adjustments, and they know that Game 3 is do or die for them. Like, that's pretty much they got to win that one. Otherwise, their hope, there's no hope for them, and whatnot. Because now Mike Conley is coming back, and basically they're going to get the Utah Jazz at full strength for the most part. I mean, obviously, Donovan Mitchell kind of got hurt toward the end of the game, but I think he's okay. Like, Donovan Mitchell is one tough cookie, and the fact that he was able to get back into the playoffs after he got hurt speaks to high volumes of how tough of a player he is. Like, the Jazz, there's a reason why the Jazz have only lost one game, and that was Game 1 to the Grizzlies, where they didn't have Donovan Mitchell, and again, that speaks to high volumes of how valuable Donovan Mitchell is, and whatnot. So Larry says the Clippers are up against the wall right now, and then Matt Hames says Marcus Morris, Boogie Cousins, and especially Pat Beverly are all fake tough guys. I think that last part I can totally agree with, especially Pat Beverly. Like, I've already said it that when he found out the Clippers got Kawhi Leonard, he was at a restaurant and he shouted that the Clippers just won the NBA championship. Insert Curb Your Enthusiasm music right here. Because eventually the Clippers got bounced by the Nuggets. So there's that right there. And I don't even know if the Clippers would have beaten Utah last year had Utah gotten out of that series against Denver. But that's for another day. So, and Larry says the Clippers are up against the wall. I totally agree. Number one, the Jazz have not lost a best-of-7 series when leading 2-0 in its team's history. They are 8-0. So that's a big fat... That already is a red flag for the Clippers right there. Second, the Clippers and the Jazz have... This will be the fourth time the Clippers and the Jazz will face each other in the postseason. And those previous 3 times that the Clippers and Jazz have met in the playoffs, the Jazz have won all 3 of those series. So there's that too. And then the Clippers just became the 11th team to lose their first 2 games in a series. And those previous 10 teams that lost games 1 and 2 in the first and second round wound up not making it to the conference finals. So, and then also you got to add, like I said, to the fact that the Clippers have not made it to the conference finals in general. So that's a lot of adversity the Clippers have got to rewrite. But I just don't see how they're able to overcome that much history. Like, it's already tough that they're just too inconsistent. Like in game 1 against Utah, they were up 13, and some Clipper apologists were saying the Clippers played like crud, but I will say this, you were up 13 at halftime. You were dominating against a Utah Jazz team without Mike Conley, and you wound up losing by 3. I don't want to hear anyone defending the Clippers, because first and foremost, when you're up 13, you got to put your foot on the throat. But knowing the Clippers, this seems to happen quite a bit in the second round. I mean, look at what happened to them last year. They were up 3-1 on Denver, and they had like multiple leads in like games 5 and 6, and then they wound up blowing them. So my thing is for the Clippers is their goose is cooked unless they win the next 2, which I don't think is going to happen. I totally agree with what Matt says. I think, like, obviously Kawhi can be Kawhi. And then Marcus Morris has done some good things, and same with Reggie Jackson. And then we haven't really seen too much of Pat Beverly because Ty Lue swapped him and I believe Luke Kennard, if not Reggie Jackson, and has put pretty much Pat Beverly on the bench, which kind of makes me wonder, is the Pat Beverly days for the Clippers over? Who knows? But also I need to make note that the Clippers, when it comes to playing in the second round, they always seem to crumble under pressure. Like, and this kind of speaks to what I talked about last week or a couple weeks ago, that the Clippers just don't seem to meet the expectations. Like, everyone puts high expectations on them because they have one of the best players in the NBA in Kawhi Leonard. And then they have Paul George, and then etc., 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 etc. And then they also had a good coach in Doc Rivers back last year and during his tenure. And then everyone was praising the Clippers making it to the finals, Clippers winning the championship. No. And that's the problem with the Clippers. They just don't meet the expectations, and they always find a way to, like, blow it themselves. And it's really disappointing because this team has the key pieces, and this team gave up a lot. They gave up so much draft capital to get Paul George from OKC. And if they don't, hence the words, if they don't make it out of the second round or get any sort of make it to the conference finals, let alone winning a championship, this whole Paul George trade and acquiring Kawhi Leonard will look kind of like how the then New Jersey Nets traded for Kevin Garnett, Paul Pierce, Jason Terry, and I don't remember the other guy, from the Boston Celtics, and gave up so much draft capital. So pretty much the Clippers have so much. It's like they have a lot to lose, and they use that as demotivation, or they just like cower when it comes to the spotlight just being on them. So That's the thing that concerns me about the Clippers. Like, they just fail to meet the high expectations that everyone places on them. Because I have a lot of friends that say Clippers versus Nets in the finals, or Clippers are going to win the championship. It's like, and I keep trying to tell them, have you seen the Clippers past? And it's like, I don't get it. It's like, until I see the Clippers making it out of the conference finals, I don't want to hear any of that. And Matt says Clippers are going to lose this series, and Kawhi is going to bounce and leave PG-13 by himself with the Clippers and no draft picks. Well, this summer, Kawhi Leonard actually can leave. He can actually. He can't. He's not a restricted free agent, but he has the option of leaving and signing with another team. But if that happens, then Clippers are basically up a creek. I have also been hearing that the Clippers should trade Paul George for like CJ McCollum. One of my friends said that the Clippers should trade for CJ McCollum. I don't think the Trailblazers are going to want to part ways with CJ. And if anything, the Clippers are going to have to give up more. Like, they're not going to, like, the Trailblazers are for sure not going to say, oh, of course we'll take Paul George off your hands. It's not going to work like that. Paul George is not worth for CJ McCollum. And some are even saying Paul George for Damian Lillard, but they got to give up even more than that. It's not going to be Paul George for whatchamacallit, Paul George for Damian Lillard. It doesn't work like that. So I don't know. And then Matt says, why would Kawhi stay there after 2 second-round collapses? And again, that's true. Facts. I totally agree. And he does have that option that he can leave and go to another team. So it's rather interesting right there. And that's something you definitely want to keep an eye on. And Kawhi obviously wants to win championships. He's not going to a team just to get paid. Well, obviously he does, but he wants to win, and he did that with the Toronto Raptors. Even though I will defend the Golden State Warriors for this, the Warriors didn't have Steph Curry or Klay Thompson or Kevin Durant. But regardless, Kawhi did that with the Toronto Raptors, a team that hadn't even sniffed the NBA championship. Larry says go back to San Diego. I agree. I think I totally agree. And then funny thing is about the Clippers is they actually traded away Lou Williams to the Hawks and got Rajon Rondo. And everyone's thinking, oh, Rajon Rondo is going to make a huge difference. I still don't believe it. I don't think. I mean, he does make a great difference. Like, he meshed well with the Lakers, but this is a totally different Clippers team. And also, Rondo is going from one team to another, so he needs, like, a little bit more time to, like, fully adapt. Like, he's done a good job with the Clippers as of right now, but I think if he had signed with the Clippers in the offseason, that would have been a little bit more ideal for him, and he would have probably gotten used to the Clippers. And this is kind of where getting rid of Doc Rivers really hurts them. Because if you reunite Doc Rivers with Rajon Rondo, it's great chemistry right there. And then Matt says Rondo can't even get on the floor because Mitchell is cooking him also. Yeah, it's true. Donovan Mitchell is just such a great player. But my thing for the Clippers is, if they don't win Game 3, it's all but over. I can see them winning Game 3, but Game 4 is a little bit of a reach. So this could be looking like we could have no more Southern California teams in the NBA playoffs, which is kind of sucky, but it is what it is. Speaking of other Southern California NBA teams, we got the Lakers, who unfortunately are chilling in the offseason after their end-of-season conferences were just concluded. So, obviously, it was a difficult season for the Lakers. Believe it or not, the Lakers were 21-6 before all the injuries happened. And then what happened with those injuries was that Anthony Davis got hurt, LeBron James got hurt, Dennis Schroeder kept being put into COVID protocols. KCP had a hurt knee. Wow, I actually made a rhyme. Anthony Davis had a groin injury, and then Alex Caruso had a minor ankle injury. So, again, 21-6 before those injuries kind of derailed any hopes of maybe winning the Western Conference. I don't know. Like, maybe they would have won the West, maybe not. I think they would have at least played second. And Matt says LeBron doesn't even care that they lost. He's focused on Space Jam 2. Yeah, I think so as well. And this is and now that he mentions LeBron, next year is LeBron's last season. So I don't know what the Lakers want to do with LeBron next year. Maybe they let him walk next year because that is the last year of his contract, and they're most likely they definitely got to keep Anthony Davis. They got to lock him up if they haven't already. And personally, I mean, LeBron is still one of the more dominant players, but that ankle injury did not do him any favors. And Matt also adds that LeBron doesn't even want to play in the Olympics. He's just focused on Space Jam 2. I think the Olympics kind of would have passed him up anyway, but that's just my take. So the Lakers, like I said, they just need that third star. They need that third head for the three-headed monster. And again, getting Kyle Lowry would have been ideal, but unfortunately they just didn't want to part with anybody. And the players they have right now are good players, but they're not great players. As Dennis Schroeder wasn't on top of his game. Montrezl Harrell, unfortunately, didn't get into the fold. Marc Gasol was decent, but he kind of got shafted for Andre Drummond when he came around. Kyle Kuzma, I think, was a disappointment. And everyone is saying that he's going to be joining like some team in Beijing. KCP was decent, but unfortunately, he had to battle a knee injury and whatnot. So basically, what the Lakers, but all those players that I mentioned, those players are good players, but they're not like great players that are going to help the Lakers take that next best step. Like, I hope that most of them can be kept. Like, I think KCP obviously is staying with the Lakers, but he's staying there for 3 years and like 40, I think it's like $42 million, which I think that's way too much to give him. Just for him, it's like, you gave him that much? I couldn't believe it. Like, KCP is a good player, and I along with many other Lakers fans have eaten crow when it comes to dumping all over him. But I'll also say this, that he's drastically improved in his game, and I guess when it comes to like AD and Frank Vogel being their head coach, it's just changed him entirely. It also helps that he's turned over a new leaf. I also need to make note that KCP did a naughty thing and he got placed under house arrest, and then everyone was saying that he needs to be released, and then he eventually turned the corner last year. So, and in the Lakers' defense, and I don't mean to be a Lakers like defender, but it also didn't help that the Lakers only got 2 months of like recovery time after the bubble playoffs. I understand everyone's gonna say it doesn't matter, but 2 months of like rest and recovery and training camp stuff, that's not really a whole lot of time, and it really doesn't help the Lakers that they got such a late not vacation, but a late offseason. And then the same can be said for the Miami Heat. I know Miami is not Southern California, but the Heat also had that same trouble as well. They dealt with COVID and injuries and all that type of stuff. And Pat Riley's not a bad owner. I just think that the bubble playoffs and how the NBA season was structured kind of just didn't do them any favors. So at the end of the day, it is what it is. And the Lakers are just going to have to go back to the drawing board. Like, they need to find a way to, like, get their guys fully healthy. And the funny thing is like the funny thing is about Anthony Davis and how he got hurt is I need to pull this up. I need to pull this up when it comes to what Earvin Magic Johnson said. The great Earvin Magic Johnson when it came to what he said about Anthony Davis. I need to pull up what he said. Let me see. It's around here somewhere. It's really, really funny. I guess I can't find it, but it had something to do with. Okay, here it is. Here's this tweet. So here's this tweet that Magic Johnson said, is that the Lakers did 3 things wrong last night. They waited until the second half to start playing with passion and fire on both ends of the court. They waited too long to play their small team, which actually fueled their comeback to get within 10 of the Suns. And they waited too long to double-team Booker, who ended up with 47. And then he says, a couple of suggestions for Anthony Davis, one of the top 5 players in the NBA, which I agree, in the offseason. Next season, come in the best shape of your NBA career. Work with your trainer to help get you stronger and not bigger. I feel that's kind of the same thing, but I digress. And then he also says to hire a physical therapist to help heal from all your injuries this season. And this is the funny part. Magic Johnson also says, and consider taking yoga classes to help with stretching. I don't know if that last part of taking yoga isn't going to help him, but I was like, okay, I guess that's cool. And then Magic also says that Rob Pelinka has a lot of work to do over the summer, and the Lakers didn't perform well against the Suns. And I think the problem with the Lakers was that they weren't at full strength, and it didn't help that they had to pretty much just shuffle their lineups over and over and over again, and it didn't help that Anthony Davis was unable to go. Like, he played 5 minutes, and then he just couldn't do anything with that nagging groin injury. So overall, it's basically going to be a work in progress. I do think the Lakers need to add that third superstar to their 3-headed monster, because obviously Trez isn't going to be in the fold a whole lot for the Lakers. Dennis Schroeder wasn't all that good this season. He could be used as trade bait this offseason. And Kuzma obviously disappointed, and KCP's good, but he's not going to give you 20 a game. So there's that right there, or at least 15 a game. But regardless, the Lakers have quite the bit of an offseason to deal with. I think they're still on the right path to still being a good team. But again, getting that third superstar would really help them. I don't know if they should be going after Damian Lillard or CJ McCollum or Bradley Beal, but I'll also say that would be a great addition for their team. But the thing is, who are they going to give up for those said players? They don't have the best draft capital to trade away. And also, are other teams going to really want Kyle Kuzma or any of those other players that I mentioned previously? I think Schroeder would be the best player to trade, but who are you also giving up? Talen Horton-Tucker? KCP? I don't know, but I think for me, this offseason is going to be one crucial offseason for the Lakers, and then if they strike gold with their offseason, I think they could possibly be in for a bounce-back season next year. Because obviously injuries are not fun to deal with, but you kind of got to adapt to them. And I know every team has to deal with injuries at least one point of the season, but it doesn't help when one, if not both of your key guys get hurt to the point where they basically have to play like some of these other players that don't fit that role perfectly. So there's that. So we'll see what Rob Pelinka wants to do, and we'll see what the Lakers also want to do in the offseason. Like, they have... The world is kind of their oyster. It's all about if they can strike gold and if they want to maybe, like, keep LeBron a little bit longer. Like, I don't know if I don't know if LeBron wants to be kept a little bit longer as a Laker. That's because he wants to go back and play for Cleveland in the near future. But I'll also say this, that if LeBron does want to go back to Cleveland, but at least he gets the Lakers one more championship, I will be totally fine with that. It's just that I wish that this season could have been a little bit more different. But again, injuries doesn't help, and then having Schroeder go into COVID protocols doesn't help. I really can't wait until this whole COVID thing is over and done with. I've been fully vaccinated, so I encourage everyone else to be vaccinated and whatnot. So there's that on the Lakers. I won't talk about them too much just because that's basically beating a dead horse. But I'll also say this. I think the Lakers are primed for a decent season next year. But again, the pressure is going to be on them because they have LeBron and AD, and they're still most likely going. Everyone else is going to have their targets on them, and that target on their back already is already big enough to the point where everyone is hunting them. So we'll see what happens with the Lakers next season. Like, I think it's going to be a good time for the Lakers. So that's enough NBA talk. For right now, the Clippers are the only team remaining in the NBA playoffs, and hopefully they can at least salvage one win. But I think this is kind of the point of no return. So we'll see. Alright, so let's jump to a little NFL talk. Not much has been happening when it comes to the Chargers and the Rams. I guess it's worth noting that the Tennessee Titans did trade for Julio Jones. They gave up a second-round pick for Julio Jones to the Atlanta Falcons. Some people were saying that Julio Jones should go to the Chargers, but my thing is, first and foremost, the Chargers have plenty of wide receivers, and I've pretty much said this on my account, my own personal Twitter account, which is in the description of the show. So, the Chargers already have Keenan Allen, one of the top wide receivers in the NFL. They have Mike Williams, who didn't have the greatest season last year, but he is a dude that can catch the ball, and those 50-50 balls can sometimes be 100%. They also have Jalen Guyton, who's emerged as a wide receiver, partially thanks to Justin Herbert. And we also have Tyron Johnson, who also emerged as a wide receiver for the Chargers. Not the greatest wide receiver, but because of injuries to like Keenan Allen and some of the other receivers, he's had to step up big time. And then the Chargers also just recently drafted Joshua Palmer, and he's a wide receiver from Tennessee. They drafted him in the third round. Honestly, that is those players that I just mentioned. There should be no reason why the Chargers should be thinking they should be trading for Julio. Like, unless Julio wants to sign for a very small minimum, I don't think that the Chargers need Julio Jones. And it's just another player to deal with when it comes to, like, maybe getting money and whatnot. Like, it would be cool to have Julio Jones, but the Chargers don't want to give up too much for him. And I think the Chargers roster is coming along pretty nicely. And then they also have Austin Eckler, who serves as a good slot receiver. Like he's not only a running back, but he also catches some dump passes as well. So there's that for the for the Chargers. And the only thing that is their greatest concern is obviously their offensive line. Like, they're improving the offensive line, but it can be better. And then their next biggest concern is their tight end room. So I think of all the teams in the AFC West, the Chargers have the worst tight end room. Like, obviously they have Jared Cook, who is a veteran, but my concern is fumbleitis. And then they have Donald Parham, who I guess played decently. Like, he's 6'8", and he was undrafted, and he kind of proved himself, especially when Hunter Henry wasn't really fully around, but he's not someone I'd ride home with. And the Chargers, when it came to the draft, also drafted Trey McKitty from Georgia. Now, the Chargers actually could have drafted Tommy Tremble, as the Chargers did pick before the Panthers did, but I guess the Chargers wanted to get Joshua Palmer, then hope that they can get Tommy Tremble, the tight end from Notre Dame. But unfortunately, that was not the case, and Tommy Tremble is a Carolina Panther, while the Chargers are going to have to work with Trey McKitty, which everyone is speculating him as their worst pick. I don't think he's too bad. Like, Georgia obviously gets a bad rap because they were living in the shadow of Alabama and whatnot, but I think Trey McKitty can hopefully develop. I mean, they obviously have Parham, but I don't think he's going to be a franchise tight end. He's no Darren Waller or Travis Kelce, that's for sure. And then Jared Cook is probably a vet. I think he signed for 1 or 2 years. He didn't sign for too much, and it would have been great if the Chargers brought back Hunter Henry or if they had signed Jonnu Smith, but both of those went to the Patriots, and that's that right there. But overall, I think the Chargers are coming along nicely. They just need to continue to beef up their O-line. And I think their starting tight end will most likely be Jared Cook, but he might serve as a red zone receiver just because he's tall and whatnot. And then Parham also serves as a good red zone tight end as well, considering he's 6'8", and he's developed quite nicely. He's had his fair share of big catches. He almost had that big catch in the loss to the Raiders. All he just needed to do was just secure the ball perfectly, and then poof, the Chargers win. But unfortunately, the defender knocked it out of his hands, and the Raiders were able to get the win. So there's that. But overall, I think the Chargers, from what I've been hearing, could be a decent sleeper team, and a team that could make for a good push in the wild card, for a spot in the wild card playoffs. Again, the AFC is very stacked, so their margin of error is rather thin, especially since they get such a tough start to the season. That schedule is really brutal to start. Whew. And especially since they get that awkward Week 7 bye, which... Week 7? At least, get it in, the Week 10s or something. So, that's unfortunate for the Chargers, but it is what it is. I have the Chargers going 12-5. I've already broken down their schedule, kinda. 13-4 if they haven't clinched the AFC West or anything among that sort. But regardless, I'm really looking forward to their Chargers season. As Larry said a couple episodes ago, the Chargers can be an ace. It can basically be an ace, 1 or 11, which that basically is the definition of boom or bust. And with Justin Herbert entering a second season, and with him getting stronger, it's looking quite promising. It's just they just got to put it together, and They just got to listen to what Brandon Staley has to say and buy into his system. And then they also got to keep Derwin James healthy. Like, when I saw Derwin James back onto that field, I was so happy. I'm like, oh my God, it's a miracle. And he has the potential to becoming comeback player of the year. He's just got a lot of stiff competition to deal with, such as Dak Prescott, maybe Joe Burrow. And then, I don't know if Christian McCaffrey can be considered for comeback player of the year, but he could also be a good candidate. Regardless, it may be tough for Derwin to be comeback player of the year, but if he does get it, that would be huge. So, we'll see what happens. But on that note, that's going to do it for a little Chargers talk. I'm not going to go I'm not going to go too much in depth on the Chargers or the Rams unless something big happens, like a trade or a free agent signing. Like, training camp is underway, and so far so good for both teams. I just hope they can keep it together by the time the regular season starts, or at least preseason. Whatever the case may be, that's going to do it for the NFL portion of the show. Let's take ourselves a quick little commercial break. When we come back, we've got some MLB talk, and then we also have got some farewells to some of these NCAA teams from Southern California that unfortunately fell in the NCAA tournament. Regardless, you are listening to the SoCal Supreme Sports Show here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Hey sports fans, do you like wine? Well, we've got the show for you. This is Let's Wine About Sports, a show where we talk about wine and sports simultaneously. From the classic Cabernet Sauvignon all the way down to the grapes that you've never even heard of before. Oh yeah, we cover it all. And we'll talk about a little bit of sports as well. Football, hockey, collegiate, women's sports, it doesn't matter. We're going to talk about it all, and we're going to whine about it all. So join me Monday at 8 p.m. on IU Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Attention, all sports fans! If you're someone who wakes up each morning with lists of sporting events to go along with your to-do list for the day, then you just might be a diehard. The world of sports is as vast as the ocean is deep, including the major leagues, the minor leagues, the college, and everything in between. This is me, your boy Larry B of IE Sports Radio, welcoming you to join me every Monday evening at 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern on The Defining Moment, a show that focuses on what really matters in the sports world, sports themselves, and nothing outside of them. Once again, tune in for The Defining Moment with me, your boy Larry B, every Monday evening at 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern on IE Sports Radio, right here on Spreaker.com. We'll see you then.
And we are back for segment number 2 of the SoCal Supreme Sports Show. You can check out all of our amazing shows on several different platforms, such as Spreaker, which is what we mostly use, Spotify, Podcast Addict, TuneIn, Apple Podcasts, and even YouTube. So definitely do check out all of our amazing shows on those different platforms that I just mentioned. There are a few others as well, as there's plenty of platforms that you could probably listen to this show on. Like, it'll make your head spin. So, regardless, it is available on those different platforms. Like I said, I feel there's like more, and then I guess it's also featured on iHeartRadio, and it's also featured on Google Play as well. Like, I'm trying to find the podcast options of where you can like find this show and find the other shows as well, but I'm having no such luck. So there's that right there, which, yeah, it's not letting me do so. So, oh well, it is what it is, and regardless, you can check out all of our amazing shows on several different platforms. So now let's jump into segment number 2 of the SoCal Supreme Sports Show. So now we have to get to the sad. No, not the sad portion. That's not really the nice thing to call it. But we gotta get into the what's the terminology called? The not so happy news when it came to the when it comes to this show. And obviously, it's not fun seeing any team season end. And especially for like college athletes or high school athletes. So 5 days ago, which was on June 5th, which was, I think that was, it was a Saturday. It was Saturday night. The UCLA softball team unfortunately had its season come to an end as they lost to Oklahoma in an elimination game. Oklahoma eventually wound up winning the whole thing, by the way. So, unfortunately, UCLA lost in I think it was like the regionals, but it was in an elimination game, and UCLA kind of got put in this situation because they lost via, I think it was like a perfect game or no-hitter to Alabama. Regardless, it was a tough ending to the season for UCLA softball, and their pitcher, however, Rachel Garcia, is going to have the brightest future ahead of her, as she's playing for the U.S. Olympic softball team, which I'm very excited to what she can be doing. So I can't wait to see what she can do. Unfortunately, it would have been great to see her end her NCAA softball career with a win, but unfortunately, that was not the case, and sadly, it just wasn't meant to be. UCLA just unfortunately did not have that big hit. So there's that. And then the second team that fell when it came to the NCAA tournament was UC Santa Barbara's baseball team, as they lost to Arizona, which is currently alive in the Super Regionals. They are playing Ole Miss in about 5 or so minutes. Unfortunately, UC Santa Barbara lost to Arizona 5-2 in the regional elimination game. Like, they were able to beat Oklahoma State twice, but unfortunately, Arizona, the Pac-12 champion, was just too much to handle. Regardless, UC Santa Barbara baseball also had a fantastic season, so it just is what it is for them. And lastly, we had UCLA's baseball team fall in the Lubbock Regional Final to Texas Tech, as they lost 8-2. And the Bruins looked promising. I think other than Arizona, they had the most promise to start off. And then unfortunately, they just kind of fell off the wagon, which really sucks. But honestly, I don't know if UCLA would have handled like teams like Vanderbilt or Arkansas or all of the above, or any of those other good teams like East Carolina. Like, it really sucks what happened to them. But UCLA also had a great season, And then the last team that unfortunately got eliminated when it came to softball and baseball was UC Irvine. This happened on June 7th, aka Monday, where UC Irvine lost to Stanford 11-8. And it's quite unfortunate just because Stanford is just a really good team, and they pretty much steamrolled Texas Tech in the Lubbock Super Regional. I think it was like 17-2 or something. It looked like a water polo score. Regardless, UC Irvine fell in the regional final in Northern California. So it was a tough one for UC Irvine, and it was a tough one for all of Southern California's baseball teams in terms of the NCAA. But all of them had a fantastic year, and there are no more softball teams and baseball teams remaining in the NCAA tournament. So this is me making a sad face. But I will also say, for the softball part, you look at the softball depth. Like, you look at Oklahoma, and then Florida State, and then Alabama. The list goes on and on. Like, UCLA probably could have been able to have beaten some of those teams, but unfortunately they just ran into the buzzsaw that was Alabama. So, again, tough one for all of our Southern California teams in the NCAA tournament, but it is what it is. So, I think that might be it for when it comes to NCAA talk. I know there's like track and field, and if a team from Southern California wins the NCAA track and field championship, then I will definitely make note of it, just like how I made note of Pepperdine men's golf winning the NCAA championship from last week. So that was huge right there. No sport in Southern California gets left behind, in my opinion. So there's that right there. So that's going to be it for the NCAA talk. And then I don't really have too much news for the football teams, but all I could just tell you is that San Diego State is going to just schedule its homecoming against Nevada, which, well, I hope their game against Nevada this go-around is better than the last one, because they just couldn't score, and unfortunately, it just was disappointing that San Diego State lost to Nevada. But again, they ran into a tough San Jose State team, and then they ran into a just as tough Nevada team. So there's that right there. So that is that for NCAA Southern California sports talk. So now let's jump into baseball. There is no MLS action. The Galaxy and LAFC are off until next weekend, which I'm surprised they had the week off, but I guess it's kind of like interleague play or something like that. Regardless, I kind of like seeing the Galaxy and the Galaxy do work. And I guess LAFC, but more so the Galaxy, because the Galaxy are starting to become a team to know and love, considering the Galaxy are already turning their season around from last season. Last year, they finished with like 22 points overall. This year, they've got almost over half of that. I think they have like 16, and they're currently third in the Western Conference. LAFC is trying to claw their way back, but unfortunately, they're still having a tough time. They don't play until next week, like I said, so we won't talk a whole lot about them. So let's just push NCAA soccer to the side, and then let's go into some MLB action. I want to say we'll wrap up after that, just because there's not too much NFL talk. I already kind of went through that, and I don't think there was any LA Rams news unless I missed it. And if I missed it, then I'll probably come back and speak it to you all. So now let's go to... Well, actually, no. Before we go to the MLB, we actually have the Sparks, and this team I always seem to miss. So the Sparks recently just lost to the Washington Mystics, 89-71. They actually had a 2-game winning streak. They had beaten the Chicago Sky 68-63, and they beaten the Indiana Fever 98-63. They unfortunately lost to the Dallas Wings 79-69 in the Commissioner's Cup, whatever that is. And they also beat the Chicago Sky in OT. Like, the Sparks are 3-0 against the Chicago Sky. I just realized that. And that was the team that had Candace Parker. So, revenge is the best dish served cold. Anyway, I don't know what this Commissioner's Cup is. It's probably like something that I'm probably not knowing because I'm not following the WNBA too much. But it's looking like I'm going to have to if the Clippers do get bounced out of the second round. So anyway, coming up next for the Sparks, they are at Minnesota as they take on the Minnesota Lynx on Saturday at 5 p.m. Pacific time. Hang tight for a minute. Alright, so like I said, the Sparks are at Minnesota to take on the Minnesota Lynx on Saturday at 5 p.m. The Lynx are 3-5, while the Sparks are currently 4-4. Then next Wednesday we have the Sparks taking on the Phoenix Mercury. That is a Commissioner's Cup game. That is on Wednesday at 7:30 p.m. That's actually going to be on Prime Video, which I don't know about you all, but I don't like it when they play on Prime Video. This is kind of the reason why you should have like Spectrum, but even that's kind of a little bit of a highway robbery. Regardless, it's kind of weird. And then next Friday, the Sparks take on the Mercury again. They play on the CBS Sports Network, and they play at 7:30 p.m. Pacific time next Friday. And then I guess it's worth noting that next Sunday on June 20th, the Sparks play the Liberty. So Sabrina I'm going to butcher her last name, but Ionescu is going to have her little homecoming back to California. She's done quite good for the Liberty, as they've surpassed their win total from last year, which kind of speaks high volumes into how bad the Liberty was last year. But Sabrina Ionescu is going to be making her way back to California, and I look forward to that game. But for right now, the Sparks got to get through the Lynx, then they got to get through the Mercury, then they also got to get through the Mercury again. And I guess their next two games are Commissioner's Cup games, as the Sparks lost to the Dallas Wings in their most recent Commissioner's Cup game, and then they also lost to the Aces in a Commissioner's Cup game, and they also lost to the Wings again in a Commissioner's Cup game. So, interesting. So, I don't know what this Commissioner's Cup is, and I probably should be looking this up more, but for right now, I'm just concerned about what the Sparks' current record stands. Maybe the Commissioner's Cup games is like, it doesn't have anything to do with like their current record, because according to the ESPN app, the Sparks have played more than 8 games. They've played 9 games. Well, no, they played 8 games. It's just that I guess they had a scrimmage with the Las Vegas Aces, and I guess they tied with them 85-85. So I guess the Sparks are where they're at in terms of number of games played. They're 4-4, and they have a 1-game road trip. Well, they continue their road trip, their 2-game road trip, as they're going from the nation's capital over to Minnesota, aka Minneapolis, and then they return home to take on the Mercury, and then, believe it or not, they actually have a 4-game homestand against the Mercury twice, the Liberty once, and then the Mystics again. So, we'll see. We'll see what happens, but that's going to do it for the LA Sparks portion of the show. I gotta give my love to the Sparks, because at least that's the team in purple and gold that's currently playing right now. I don't mind seeing them play, and I hope we get to see them continue their dominance. So now let's jump over to the MLB, and then I will send you all on your way. So currently right now, the Padres are playing the Mets, and the Padres are losing 3-0. I'm going to be hearing this from the guys at the show that never sleeps, which you should check out every Wednesday at 3 p.m. Pacific Time, 6 p.m. Eastern Time. The Angels play the Diamondbacks tonight, and then the Dodgers play the Texas Rangers. So the Dodgers, let's talk about the Dodgers real quick. So the Dodgers just recently swept the Pittsburgh Pirates, which was great to see. They won Game 1 on Tuesday by a score of 5-3. They won Game 2 by a score of 2-1. And then they also won the second game 6-3 in 8 innings. And the reason why it was called in 8 innings was because there was like rain going on the game. I guess the game was called in like the 8th inning, and then they decided to just declare the Dodgers the winner just because the game had already been halfway done. And I don't know if that final inning would have mattered, but c'est la vie. So it's good that the Dodgers are finally beating the teams that they need to beat up on, because they're currently trailing the Giants. And their previous series, the Dodgers lost 2 of 3 to the Atlanta Braves. Last Friday, they beat the Braves 9-5 in Game 1, but lost to the Braves in Game 2 6-4. And then in Game 3, aka the rubber match on this past Sunday, the Dodgers lost to the Braves 4-2. Tonight, they are kicking off a 3-game homestand against the Texas Rangers. The first 2 games start at 7:10 p.m. and then Sunday's game starts at 1:10 p.m. So I really want to see the Dodgers see them sweep. I want to see them pulling off the sweep. If they can continue to keep up their winning ways, I think they could catch up to the Giants and bring them down. Because Dodgers have obviously been hampered by injuries, but they haven't been making that as too big of an excuse, as they have continued to pull out some pretty decent wins. Unfortunately, they've had some other heartbreaking losses, but it is what it is. Later on in the week, the Dodgers take on the Philadelphia Phillies on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. All of them are pretty much going to be 7 p.m. start times, and all of those games are going to be played at the Chavez Ravine. The Monday and Wednesday game are 7:10 start times, and then the Tuesday game is a 7 p.m. start time. And then next Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, the Dodgers hit the road to the desert to play the Arizona Diamondbacks. And then, not next Monday, but the following Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, the Dodgers travel to San Diego to take on the Padres. And 2 of those games are going to be played on ESPN. I can hardly wait for those games. Those are going to be fun games. But for right now, the Dodgers got to take care of business against the Diamondbacks and the Phillies. The Diamondbacks are the worst team in the MLB, and the Rangers are right behind them. The Phillies aren't that terrible, but they're still not in a great position. Sure, they're in second place, but it's kind of a distant second place. So there's that right there. If you want more talk on Philadelphia sports, check out Philly Sports Talk every Tuesday at 5 p.m. Pacific Time, 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Fun fact is that was actually my original time for Set Point, and then unfortunately I had to give it up because work and busyness. So there's that right there. So let's jump on over to the Angels. So the Angels actually just recently swept the Kansas City Royals. They won Game 1 on Monday by a score of 8-3. They won Game 2 by a score of 8-1. And then they won Game 3 on Wednesday by a score of 6-1. So they didn't give up too many runs, which kind of makes me wonder, how the heck did that happen? And also, Dylan Bundy got his first win of the season. We are so proud of you, Dylan Bundy. That's just me clapping with one hand. Anyway, prior to that series, the Angels actually split their series with the Seattle Mariners. It was a 4-game series. The Angels lost Game 1 by a score of 6-2, and then that was last Thursday. Last Friday, the Angels beat the Mariners 3-2, and then last Saturday, the Angels beat the Mariners 12-5, and then in closing of the series, last Sunday, the Angels lost to the Mariners 9-5. And then also, I gotta make note that the Angels split their 2-game series against the Giants. The Giants won the first game 6-1, and then the Angels won the second game 8-1. So there's that right there. So looking ahead to the Angels' schedule, the Angels are on the road against the Arizona Diamondbacks. They start tonight at 6:40 p.m., and then on Saturday and Sunday, the Angels play the Diamondbacks on both days at 1:10 p.m. on Saturday and Sunday. If the Angels could actually win those games, that would be ideal and key for them. Because nothing would be worse than losing to a team, the worst team in the MLB. God. But regardless, I think the Angels kind of have it going for them, as Shohei Ohtani is going to be pitching tonight, and here's hoping Shohei can actually do some big things tonight. So after the 3-game series against the Diamondbacks, the Angels will play the Oakland Athletics at Oakland on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. And then next Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, the Angels are back home against the Detroit Tigers. So this is kind of a good, favorable schedule for them. Like, the Diamondbacks, if they could play their cards right, the Angels could possibly be climbing in the AL West. The Angels have actually won 7 of their last 10, which is very surprising. They've currently won 3 in a row, courtesy of their 3-game sweep over the Kansas City Royals, which is some good stuff right there. But the Angels have a long ways to go if they want to catch the Oakland A's and the Houston Astros. Like, the Angels are basically theoretically tied for 3rd place with the Seattle Mariners. Like, I just feel the Angels are just way too good to be in 3rd place. So there's that right there for the Angels. And if they can get it together, then cool stuff. But if not, then so be it, just because the Angels are just not good this season. And it's sad because I think they were off to a promising start, and then they wound up pooping the bed. Anyway, now let's jump over to the San Diego Padres. So the Padres are still trying to keep pace with the Dodgers and the Giants. They are currently down 3-0 in the bottom of the 6th inning to the New York Mets. This past week, the Cubs defeated the Padres in 2 out of 3 games. The first game, the Padres beat the Cubs 9-4. The second game, the Cubs beat the Padres 7-1. And then the third game, the Cubs beat the Padres 3-1. And then last week, the Padres split their series against the New York Mets. Given how much injuries the Mets have had, I thought this would have been an easy series for the Padres to make up ground with, but unfortunately it was not the case. The Mets are still pretty good, though. There's a reason why the Mets are leading the NL East. The first game, the Padres beat the Mets 3-4, and the second game, the Padres beat the Mets 2-0, and then the third game on Saturday, the Mets beat the Padres 4-0, and then on Sunday, the Mets beat the Padres in the fourth game, salvaging a split by winning 6-2, forcing the Padres to not gain a whole lot of ground when it comes to their pursuits of winning the NL West. But currently, as we are speaking, the Padres are in the Big Apple to take on the New York Mets. And if anything, I don't expect the Padres to win this series, but I at least want them to be competitive. And their game against the Mets is currently going on right now. Their Saturday game is scheduled for 1:10 p.m. Pacific time, and then their Sunday game is slated for 10:10 a.m. Pacific time. And then starting on Monday through Wednesday, we have the Padres traveling to the Rocky Mountains to take on the Colorado Rockies. First game is slated for 5:40 p.m. The second game is slated for 5:40 p.m. And then the third game is slated for 12:10 p.m. And then next Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, the Padres return home to Petco Park to take on the Cincinnati Reds. First game is slated for next Thursday at 5:40 p.m. The second game is slated for next Friday at 7:10 p.m. The third game is slated for next Saturday at 4:15 p.m. And then on Sunday, or next Sunday's game, is slated for 1:10 p.m. against the Cincinnati Reds. So we'll see if the Padres can make up some ground. A big mistake for the Padres is to look ahead to their series against the Dodgers. It's kind of tough to do so, considering that is a crucial series for both teams, as one, if not both these teams, are going to try their hardest to try to keep pace with the San Francisco Giants. I honestly can't believe the Giants are actually leading the division. Everyone was saying that the Giants were either going to finish near the middle or the bottom, but I had a feeling the Giants were kind of going to be somewhat of a threat to the Dodgers. Like, they're always their kryptonite. So we'll see what happens going forward. This season is indeed a marathon and not a sprint. And the Giants did miss the playoffs last season due to tiebreaker, and it was quite the bummer for them. So they've kind of got a little bit of redemption going on for them. So we'll see if the Giants can hold on. Like, I want to see who the Giants are currently playing. They're playing the Nationals right now, and they've got a doubleheader tomorrow. And like everyone knows, the doubleheaders this season are 7-inning games, which is kind of funny. And then the Giants got the Diamondbacks next Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, and then and Thursday, and then next Friday, Saturday, Sunday, the Giants are home against the Phillies, so there's that. Oh, by the way, I actually do want to welcome in and give a new plug to our new show. It is called Reppin' to NorCal Sports, hosted by Gina G. That is going to be making its debut on Monday at 3 p.m. Pacific Time, 6 p.m. Eastern. So Gina will be going on with her debut of her new show, Reppin' to NorCal Sports, before Adam Carnick goes live with his show, Chi-Town Weekly. And then I'll be going live with Set Point. No, Set Point, you're not going to be coming out now. But I'll be going live with Set Point on Monday at 5 p.m. Pacific Time. So basically, you've got 3 shows going live on Monday, all going back to back to back, with me closing out the day with Set Point and whatnot. So there's that right there. But I am happy to welcome Reppin' to NorCal Sports to IE Sports Radio, and I'm excited to see what this new show can bring. It's not really our newest Northern California show, as we did have one in the past, but now we have another NorCal show, and I can't wait to see what this next NorCal show has to offer. So there's that, and best believe there's going to be some banter, but I'm not really the banter type of guy. But regardless, that is that little plug right there. You can follow Reppin' to NorCal Sports on Twitter at REPPNDANORCALIE, and then you can follow the host at ReppinDebay415. So there's that right there. So just gotta put in that little plug right there. So that's gonna be that for baseball, and that's gonna do it for this show entirely. So thank you everyone for tuning in. Just gotta give one more little shout out to IE Sports Radio's official sponsor, Southern California Warriors Pro Semi-Pro Football Team. The world of semi-pro sports is unlike any other sports organization. Players have to pay in order to play in hopes of so many different outcomes, whether it's trying out for professional teams, trying out for big-time colleges, or just playing to stay in shape. No matter what the circumstances, all semi-pro players have one thing in common, and that's playing for the love of their game and their sport. The SoCal Warriors have been on a quest to earn titles and give players second chances since 2017. Whether you're in Southern California or anywhere in the world, give semi-pro sports a chance if you love your sport. You may get that second chance you have been waiting for as an athlete. Once again, follow Southern California Warriors on Twitter at SoCal Warriors, on Instagram at Southern California_Warriors, and go like them on Facebook and follow them on Facebook. And once again, follow IE Sports Radio on Twitter and Instagram at IE Sports Radio, and follow them on Facebook at IE Sports Radio. And definitely check out the IE Sports Radio website, where it has past guests, a gift shop where you can buy t-shirts, hoodies, tank tops. I think we even have caps online as well. And you could also check out some of the past shows that have gone by and whatnot. So definitely do check out the iSports Radio website. And you can follow me on social media, mainly on Twitter, by following the Twitter accounts down below in the description. So there is that right there. And that is going to officially do it for this week's episode of the SoCal Supreme Sports Show. And without any further delay, it is time, ladies and gentlemen, to get on out of here, because I gotta get me some supper before sundown. You dig? Thank you all once again for tuning in to the SoCal Supreme Sports Show. I definitely appreciate you tuning in. Thank you to Larry B for popping in the chat room, as well as Matt Ames. I know he's not a Southern California guy, but he is a Utah Jazz fan, and it was best to hear him speak his mind about the Jazz. I always appreciate you. That is the day one man right there, ever since the SoCal Supreme Sports Show first came out. So I appreciate you, Matt Ames. Appreciate everyone tuning in, whether it's live, whether it's via podcast form, or whether it's anywhere in the world, any time in the world. I definitely do appreciate you. And we are back for real. As summer is here, the SoCal Supreme Sports Show is going to be burning hotter and hotter, cranking out more episodes by the week. And more importantly, we are here on Friday at 5 p.m. Pacific time. Don't forget it, baby. For everyone here at iSports Radio, this is Teran Rodriguez signing off. Have yourselves a great rest of the weekend. Enjoy it. Put on your sunscreen. Stay safe. Get vaccinated. Do all that good stuff. And I will see you next week. Have a great rest of the weekend. And remember, SoCal is for SoCal. Peace.